All right, welcome back, everyone. It is Thursday, so it means we have a little Thursday night football coming up tonight. We did not make a video since the Monday night football game, so we'll recap that. I had San Francisco picked to beat Minnesota, and Minnesota pulled out the win. Um, pretty decent game for the most part. San Francisco got a turnover early on the ensuing drive. McCaffrey ended up fumbling right around the red zone. And there for a long time after that, it was all Minnesota. They ended up marching down the field. Addison got a touchdown. And then another big drive was right before halftime, is 2-minute offense. And Addison and Ward, basically it was almost a simultaneous catch, and Addison ripped the ball out, took it to the house, ended up being a 60-yard touchdown pass to Addison. Minnesota went into the half with a big lead. San Francisco come out in the third quarter. McCaffrey got his second touchdown of the game, which made it a closer game, but then in the end, Minnesota pulled ahead or stayed in the lead. And as San Francisco was driving to try to get a chance to tie the game, Brock Purdy overthrew his target and threw an interception. Now, it was reported afterwards that on the plane home he started showing concussion symptoms. I don't know if that means that he might have been concussed on that final drive, but it's very possible he could have been, and could have been why he overthrew that pass. Don't really know. I guess we won't ever really know, but it is worth noting that it could have been potentially from concussion symptoms. Kirk Cousins had a very good game. San Francisco had no sacks. They pressured him, but did not get him on the ground. He did not throw an interception. Kirk Cousins played a very good game on Monday Night Football, and that allowed Minnesota to win. Now, since then, a lot of talks this week have been centered around the trade deadline coming up next week. A lot of talks about various teams needing to make calls if they want to solidify themselves as Super Bowl contenders. It's it's Baltimore calling New York for Saquon, or calling Tennessee for Derrick Henry. It's Dallas doing the same, obviously with Tennessee, because the Giants would not trade Saquon within the division. Um, Rumors that Devontae Adams wants out. So if Buffalo, Kansas City, any contender could absorb the contract, trade for him. So it'll be interesting to see as the trade deadline comes what teams are active, most active, and what teams are not. Deshaun Watson, he only played a few snaps in the game last week, and it was noted that if people in Cleveland, the front office in Cleveland, really want to win, picking up the phone for Kirk Cousins would be a great option, since his future in Minnesota is somewhatly up in the air. But if you're Cleveland, you've got to get a quarterback, because Watson is still out. He's not playing well when he's in. His fully guaranteed contract is looking more and more like the worst contract in NFL history. And this fully guaranteed contract and the way it's worked out is going to cause a lot of teams to not even want to consider a fully guaranteed contract in the future to players. So those are all things to keep an eye on going forward. So another thing, I know I'd mentioned Dallas and people saying they need to pick up the phone, try to trade for Derrick Henry. Jerry Jones said on his weekly radio show, which personally I think he should not be doing, but that's a topic for another time. He said that they are not going to be approaching the table, and like basically they said they're not. He basically said he's not opposed to making trades to make the team better, but other teams are going to have to initiate the conversations. He's not doing that. So to me, that says he is happy with his team the way it is, and he thinks they can win as is. Excuse me. And basically, just he's he's happy and content. So if somebody wants to trade, they're going to have to approach Dallas. And I don't really see Tennessee doing that. If Henry's going to get traded, people are going to have to come to Tennessee, and Dallas is not going to give up enough to get him anyway. So I know people are saying they need to do that, but it'll never happen. So still a lot of injuries around the NFL. Obviously, I'd mentioned Brock Purdy's in concussion protocol, so he will he potentially could miss the game this week. He does have time to clear protocol. Whether he does or not is very much up in the air. I mean, it is Thursday. They play Sunday, so he's still got some time. But if not, they are at least moving forward. I don't know. I'm yawning. They are at least moving forward with um, Sam Darnold under center and prepping as if he's playing so that if it comes down to it, he is ready. So that will be a interesting game to watch. Uh, that's one of the more crucial injuries of the week, in my opinion, because San Francisco is on a 2-game skid right now, having lost to Cleveland a week and a half ago, and then Minnesota last week. They're in a position where division wise they're okay, but even within the division they can't afford much more of a skid. And as it pertains to the NFC, they're currently tied record wise with Dallas. And I say that Dallas has had their bye. San Francisco, I don't believe, has had their bye. So, but once the byes come around, if or had they all come around, they would have the same record with Dallas. Obviously, the head-to-head tiebreaker with them, but they are they're they need to hang on to what they have if they want to have any chance of getting the 1 seed. I know, obviously, the NFC East will be between Dallas and Philly, and if Dallas somehow squeaks out the division, then it could come down to that tiebreaker with San Francisco. If so, San Francisco really needs to stay on track with Dallas for tiebreaker purposes. And obviously, if it comes to wild card seeding, same thing. But that's a long ways away, and I really don't see San Francisco falling enough to not win the division. So, with that being said, we will jump into our, our really we'll do one game pick right now, but I think I have most of them for the week locked in. Uh, we have the Thursday night football. We have Buffalo hosting Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay coming off what really should have been a more lopsided loss to Atlanta. It was a very close loss, but Atlanta played pretty well. Tampa didn't play that well. Buffalo coming off a really bad loss to New England and having lost 2 of the last 3, having not played good in all 3 of the last 3. So this is a big game for Buffalo. I know they've had some injuries in the secondary, and Sean McDermott, who is um, basically, he took on the defense coordinator role this year, so he's the head coach and defense coordinator, and really, I think the injuries are starting to stack up, and it starting to stretch the defense so thin, and it's putting a lot of pressure on McDermott. Um, if I were a Buffalo fan, I think I would want him to delegate more of the defensive coordinator roles to someone else and kind of focus on the team as a whole instead of spending so much time on the defense. But that's just me personally. We have a really big spread for the game tonight. It's 9.5, and I've seen it anywhere from 8.5 to 10. Various websites show different numbers. Ultimately, I do think Buffalo will win this game tonight. I don't think Tampa Bay is quite equipped to hang with them. Although they do have good offense, I think Baker Mayfield will be what holds them back in this particular game. Josh Allen has played pretty well in most games this year, and I think the Bills will just be too much for the Buccaneers to be able to handle. I think Buffalo pulls this game out. I don't believe they cover the full spread, but I think they'll win by a touchdown. So, geez, that's like 4 yawns. I apologize for that. I'm not going back to remake this video or edit it, so you'll just have to deal. Um, a few noteworthy games for the weekend. Obviously, for me, Green Bay is hosting Minnesota, the first of their two games this year. This game will again hosted, so it'll be in Green Bay. Another one will be Dallas and the LA Rams. That's a crucial game that could come down for playoff seeding as it pertains to if the Rams and Dallas both win divisions, it could have tiebreaker um, ramifications as well as wild card ramifications if both these teams are wild card teams. So that will be an important game to watch this weekend. We have the rematch of Miami and New England, the first time they played, which I believe was week 2. New England really played pretty well against Hill, contained him, and also he has a hip injury. He says he's good to go and he's going to play, but he could be hindered. So it'll be curious to see if New England has a similar defensive plan as they had that game, or even possibly a slightly different or better, to see if they can possibly pull out a second division win in a row. So that will be interesting to watch. Washington and Philly play. Obviously, Washington not a very good team this year, but as it is a game with Philly, this is an important win for Philly. This will really be one of the last easier games Philly has for the year. They they succeeded in beating Miami last week, which was a big win, but they really got to secure this win against Washington, and because they play Dallas next week and they need all the wins they can get before then, and really they need to beat Dallas so that coming out of that game they roll into their bye week basically 3 games ahead of Dallas, because right now they are 2 games ahead of Dallas, essentially 2.5. They're 1 game ahead right now due to their loss to the Jets, but they'll need to beat Dallas to distance themselves and give them a little bit of breathing room, because they do have to play Buffalo down the stretch. They'll play Dallas a second time. They're playing Kansas City. So they have some very, I mean, it's been highly talked about. They do have a rough stretch of games they're coming into. They need as much wiggle room and cushion in the division as possible beforehand. Another game, Denver is hosting Kansas City. I know they played a couple weeks ago. Denver played better against them, but we'll see how this second matchup goes. Cincinnati is playing San Francisco. Obviously, Brock Purdy in concussion protocol, so could have a backup quarterback in at San Francisco. Cincinnati coming off of a bye, so we'll see how they look and see if they have recovered, see if Joe Burrow is healthy. We have the Giants and Jets playing. This is 2 teams that share a stadium. The Giants will be considered the home team here, and that will be a good game. And the only other thing is obviously Detroit hosting Monday Night Football. First time they have hosted a Monday Night Football game in quite some time. They have finally became a good enough team that the NFL is willing to give them a Monday night game. So I know a lot of players are excited about that. So they're happy to be hosting Monday Night Football. Like I said, most of these games I have already picked, but I will cover most of these in a separate video, probably tomorrow, maybe Saturday. I'm not real sure when I'll do that other video. Um, but as I said, Buffalo is my pick tonight. And a couple things going on around the league. Obviously, a lot of injuries. Justin Fields likely to not play his second week in a row due to a dislocated thumb. His backup, Bagent, I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name. He played fairly well. Was very efficient with his passing. Didn't throw an interception, I don't believe, but he was 21 to 29. Completed a lot of passes. Didn't do a lot of damage through the air. Did a lot more on the ground running the ball. So we'll see how that plays out. Kind of lost my train of thought there. Oh, obviously, with it being week 8, we are basically almost to the halfway point of the season, somewhere over the next week, week and a half, 2 weeks. You can just technically consider it the halfway point. So from here on out, on a weekly basis, we're going to start hearing lots of talk about MVP race, Defense Player of the Year, all the big awards. So on that topic, I currently, for me personally, right now, if I had a vote, I'd be voting for Christian McCaffrey as MVP. His effect on San Francisco's offense is a very far-reaching effect, not only in the running game but the passing game, and he's really been the backbone of that offense. He's been a huge factor in that offense. And for me, I would have to give him my vote for MVP at this point in time. And I say that because so Kansas City is obviously they only have one loss. It was week 1 to Detroit. They have won every week since. And but for them, their offense really didn't get their feet on the ground and gain traction until a couple weeks ago. I mean, they had a really good game against Chicago. They somewhatly struggled against Denver. Denver played them pretty well, and then last week they played very good. They also had a game against the Jets in there. They kind of didn't play super great on offense, but they played decent. And then last week they played really good on offense. So the main thing for me with Kansas City is that yes, they're 6-1, 7-1, maybe. I don't know. They should be 5-1 or 6-1. I don't know if they've had their bye. I haven't kept up with that, but they got one loss, and their defense has played extremely well. Their defense has not allowed anyone to score more than 20 points all year. I know Detroit scored 21 points in the game opening night, but one of those was a pick six. So, and as I said in one of my previous videos, Kansas City's defense is very good. It's sneaky good. People are not talking about it, but their defense has kept their opponents from scoring points and allowed their offense to do enough to win a lot of these early games. And they are very dependent on Travis Kelce. When he does not have a good game, the offense struggles. When he does have a good game, the entire offense plays better. So I know Vegas has Patrick Mahomes as the favorite to win MVP right now, but I could not give him my vote right now because the defense has been the focal point of the team, and the defense has been the more consistent and stronger unit up to this point. And the defense for me is a lot more of why they only have one loss than anything else. Because if their offense played like it's played in several games, and the opposing team, played better, and their defense didn't shut people down, they could easily have 2 or 3 losses right now, maybe even 4. So for me, I can't give Patrick Mahomes MVP right now. I know he's right there neck and neck in yards with Kirk Cousins and Tua. He's right there neck and neck in touchdowns with them. He's right there with interceptions. He's a little lower rate. He has a little bit lower rating than those two, but ultimately, I can't give any of those three my MVP right now. I can't give it to Kirk because they have only won 2 or 3 games this year, so they aren't winning. So despite his numbers, he's not helping them win games to this point. He did Monday night. I'll give him that, and that's been one of his Achilles heel is Monday Night Football in his career. It's only his third Monday Night Football win. So if Minnesota somehow made a hard run at the division, Detroit slipped up a little bit, and Minnesota was able to catch up, or makes a hard run at the playoffs, and it's all on the arm of Kirk Cousins, then I could potentially give him my MVP vote if I had one. Um, and I can't give it to Tua right now, even though he's having a statistically great season. Miami is having a great offensive season, one of the best in history. But the thing is, the 2 games they've lost, Tua didn't play particularly well, and he really didn't play particularly well against New England. But the games they've lost, he wasn't able to keep them in the game. Like, yes, he put up some numbers, but you lose to Buffalo by, I think, 28 points. You lose by 2 touchdowns to Philly, and one of those touchdowns that you scored was a pick six. And I won't fault Jalen Hurts for that. I'll cover that in a minute, but I can't give it to Tua because he hasn't been there and hasn't done much in the losses. So right now, I couldn't give it to him. So, and I can't give it to Josh Allen because he's had a couple games where he's been really bad and struggled, and he has to play better to help them win. So I can't give it to him. So right now, I have to say Christian McCaffrey is my MVP. And if he's my MVP, then I have to give Offensive Player of the Year to Hill at this moment. So obviously, a lot of football left to play. 8, 9, I think nine games for most teams. Some games may have 10 games left. So still a lot of football left to play. This could change on a weekly basis based on performances. So we'll see how that goes. But on to Jalen Hurts. So the pick six he threw was batted. He threw the ball. One of the defensive linemen got his hands up, batted it, and it went to basically into the arms of another defense player, and he took it to the house for a pick six. I don't really fault him for that. On the stat sheet, yes, it's going to be an interception for him. I'm not going to say it shouldn't be. I mean, really, it shouldn't be, but like it's too hard to credit stuff like that to receivers or running backs if they bat a pass or. But I mean, ultimately, this was just a great play by the defense. They batted the ball. Someone was there to catch it. Can't really fault Hurts for that. Um, but statistically, he has thrown a lot of interceptions this year. Hasn't thrown a lot of touchdowns, but he's thrown a lot of picks. But ultimately, I'm not concerned with the interceptions or the turnovers because one, they are overcoming them and winning, and two, that one really wasn't on him. It wasn't like he threw into double coverage or he made a bad throw. It was just a great play by the defense. And if when the defense does make a great play, you got to give them credit for it. So I can't fault Hurts for that. And the reason I say that compared to say Dak's turnovers is Philly has still been able to overcome the turnovers, whereas Dallas, the games that they turn the ball over a lot, they've not been able to overcome. So I have to I have to go by what I see on the field, and I see Philly still winning despite the turnovers. And ultimately, like I've said, I don't really like my teams, or more uncomfortable with teams playing extremely well early in the season, where compared to teams that still have issues early in the season. And Philly, they've they've worked out some kinks on offense. They've worked out some kinks with the new coordinators, but they still have some things to work out. Hurts has to fix the turnovers. So I am much less concerned with them than I am with San Francisco right now because they have some things to work out. They're still winning despite those issues, and they have time to fix them. And if they get better on a weekly basis down the stretch, even though they have some really tough games, if they drop one or two, it's expected. But if they continue to improve and fix these issues, then come December and January, they're going to be playing their best. So I don't really have a whole lot of concern with San Francisco. Now, not San Francisco, Philly. San Francisco, I do have some concern with because in that they did go on a 2-game skid, both games on the road. Purdy made some mistakes in both games, which I think can be cleaned up. But they've got to get healthy. They got to make sure McCaffrey's healthy. They got to get Debo back on the field. They need to get back to playing like they did when they played Dallas. They need to get Kittle involved more. They need more pressure on the quarterback. They have some great guys on the defensive line that can produce pressure, but they're not getting the sacks. And by not getting those sacks, you're forcing the secondary to cover longer. They've got to get more pressure in the backfield. and get those sacks, and that will benefit them in the long run. So they have a lot of, like I said, a lot of football left to play. They can continue to improve. But right now, I'm more comfortable with Philly and their issues than I am with San Francisco and theirs. Another thing, I know I pointed it out last week or week before that every week there's what the team that's been the talk of the league every week has turned around and lost the following week. I think that trend will break this week. And I say that because Baltimore has been the big talk this week because their offense finally played a complete game, played very well, protected Lamar, and everything was really clicking for them last week. And they're playing the Arizona Cardinals this week. So I think they will pull out the win, and they'll probably continue to be the talk of the NFL for the next few weeks. But I do not think they're going to drop that game against Arizona. So I think the trend of the the hot topic team of the week will not lose this week. So all that being said, I'm gonna wrap this video up. We will jump on here tomorrow or Saturday. I haven't paid attention to any college matchups. Kind of over them at the moment. I'm much more of an NFL fan than a college fan. So we've paid attention to who's winning and who's not, but not a whole lot worth talking about in my opinion. But as I said, I have Buffalo winning tonight, and we will get the rest of our game picks out and see how we do this week. I went 9-6 2 weeks ago, and I went 6-6 last week. So definitely have some improvements to make. My total record on the year is 66-39. So have quite a bit of ways to go to get back above that 66% win percentage mark. And I really want to be above 70 on the year, so I've got my work cut out for me. No teams on a bye this week, so that gives me the most opportunities to get the most games right. So hopefully we can have a good week on that. And I will catch you in the next video when I make the rest of my game picks.